And my next thing that I have to do is find the chat. So like I said, it's a daily struggle. It's actually a little difficult to get both things going at once. Today on for the people on Facebook that can actually hear me, and YouTube, I think YouTube can hear me now too. It's going to be like just a daily chat here. And I am trying to find the chat over here. So one thing, I put it in the comment over on YouTube, but basically I need some help. So I have this sort of idea for a bit of a story that I'm going to try and use for my course launch coming up, and the people that actually are on these like live streams, like you folks generally know like what's going on with the business and everything, so you may be able to help me out. And for some reason, again, you know what, I may just like scrap the Facebook stuff soon. So my phone crashed over there or something, and it says my video has finished uploading, and it's really unclear to me if anyone can watch or if it tried to upload a video in the meantime. I see Steven over here in the live chat. That's super cool. So basically, to like get to my thought and what we're going to talk about today, I have sort of a story and idea, and I'm not 100% sure where to go with it. So today is totally experimental. It's completely selfish for me to get help from you, because I think you all know like what you're interested in and what you care about. So let me, does that sound good to you, Stephen? I see there's like 6 people watching on YouTube. So does that sound all right? And hopefully, you know, some other people can hear me too. So what I'll do right now is I'm going to share my screen, which I think I can do. And actually, let me set the stage just a bit first. So when I watch a decent amount of YouTube videos these days, and one thing that I'm noticing a lot is people showing their ads, and they have, you know, some fancy car, they have a Ferrari, they have, they're going to go buy a car. There's this one guy who's about to go into a dealership, and he's like, hey, I'm going to go buy a car right now. And it's like a Bentley, or I'm not a huge car person, so actually I don't know what he's doing, but they look very expensive. And he's like, hey, I'm going to go in and buy a car, and I'm going to pay cash for it. And there's several others. I want to say like Frank Kern had a series of commercials and just videos where he was standing in front of, you know, a multi-$100,000 car. And it just doesn't connect with me. In fact, those types of commercials make me feel like those people are like scammy, even though, right, I'm sure there is like valuable business advice that they can give you, but like the way they're trying to get people in the door, it doesn't connect with me. And, you know, I have no issue with the way people try and advertise, right? Totally cool. In fact, those people are spending money on ads, so there must be some kind of like, they're attracting the people that will buy their products, right? So I totally understand that, and like you have to use the right kind of draw to pull people in that are going to actually buy your products, and that they connect with that personality well. Stephen mentions that he does not like those type of ads either. Yeah, there's something that feels like not quite right. It feels like disconnected from like normal people that are trying to like live their life, and that maybe have products that are normal, right? I mean, I eat at normal restaurants, I cook, you know, we eat most meals in and stuff like that. It just, I couldn't, and we don't even have kids, right? I couldn't imagine if like you have kids, you're working like long days, and then you see this guy with a Ferrari trying to tell you that, you know, you should be able to do that in just a few months. And it won't even be that much hard work. Like, I feel like they're lying to me. So, cool. And Stephen mentions like they're trying to draw into your base emotions, which is not what I would do. And then Brian also mentions that it's not his style. Brian, where are you from again? I totally forget. And what about you, Stephen? I forgot where you're from. And Brian mentions there's something inauthentic about it. And I think you both are tapping into exactly like what I'm having trouble like expressing well. And here's the thing, right? So I'm just a normal dude. I had like a job. Oh, Brian, you're in Fort Wayne. Okay, I'll come back to that in just a second, by the way. I forgot you're in Fort Wayne. I knew your name, but anyway, so here's the deal. Like I basically like, my dad was a firefighter. My mom was a nurse. They're both retired at this point. I put myself through college. I got like one loan at the very end and then paid it off pretty quickly. I was lucky to, have a lot of scholarships that I earned to help offset it. And then I also worked through college. So it took me like 6 years, not 4. In addition, right, I got like a job and worked at a company for about 10 years. And then the main thing, right, to tie it together with what I'm about to like, what I'm struggling with is here's I think you all can probably see that in a second. This is like my truck here. This is my daily driver. I bought it about 10 years ago, roughly. Is that right? It's a 2005 F-150. I bought it used, right? So I bought it used and it had like 30,000 miles on it. There are no power locks. There are no power windows. This is like basically a work truck, but it does the job. And I mean, gas was a little expensive a few years back and I had to commute, upwards of 60 miles a day, depending on where I was working. But I don't drive much now, right? Like, in fact, for the last several years, I was only, and people on Facebook can't see this, but I'll flip the camera around here so that you can see my screen. This is real, not using technology to the fullest, I guess, but basically, I don't drive much now. So like, I appreciate, people being environmentally conscious and stuff like that. But the number of miles that I drive, like I'm pretty sure people with a Prius or fully electric car that live in, say, Atlanta, where I'm from, like I'm pretty sure their carbon footprint is bigger than mine because they're driving like, hundreds of miles a week like I used to. But nowadays I drive like a couple miles a week or so. I only fill up my truck like once every 6 weeks with gas. I used to fill it up like twice a week as a reference point. So anyway, the point is I feel like there's something there because it's pretty authentic, right? This is like a normal car that a normal person would drive. And I could get a different car, but it doesn't really fit with like my goals or what I need or anything like that. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. And I think, again, there's some story there, and it may just be, this is really like, inside, because I haven't created this like, piece of my story or added it to any of my like course launch material or anything like that. So I'm developing it, and I'm probably going to add it into the mix somewhere. I'm not 100% sure where, but it is definitely like a sharp contrast to like, I can't remember, like Frank Kern. I think Becker shows a lot, like Alex Becker shows a lot of videos where he, he's with his Ferrari and he's doing it for a specific reason. I know everyone's doing it for a specific reason, but it's definitely a contrast that maybe I can connect with people in a more authentic way. So, okay, cool. So, yeah, and Stephen mentions there's some other guy who's talking about depositing $25,000 into his bank account. Oh, and you're from Roanoke, Virginia. Leo made it. Thanks for joining. Thank you. Thank you. And Rafi over in Hungary. I think that's how you say your name. So anyway, I have an old truck that's paid for, and I drive a regular car, and I live in it's my townhouse behind it, and it's like essentially a starter home, right? Like my wife and I made a decision like not to trade up into a bigger house, but to stick with like what we needed. And like through that, we're able to, save a little bit more money, have a little bit more flexibility, and not own more stuff, which I find like the less stuff I have, the happier. So I usually don't get happy if I like buy more things. Like it's fun to look for stuff, but unless there's some like super practical reason to have something, it doesn't really like add anything. So anyway, any thoughts? Like, like I said, this is a purely selfish one. So I'll probably like copy the chat here and see what everyone says. So in general, it sounds like most people are not super into the fancy cars and stuff that people show off on their ads or in their sales copy. There's one guy, John Crestani or something, and he's like in a helicopter and stuff, which seems a little crazy. But anyway, I think most people just want to have flexibility with their time, be able to like make some decisions for themselves. And, if they want to go on a hike in the middle of the day, or they want to take their kids to the park in the middle of the day instead of being at work, then that's probably a win for them overall. So, so Brian, going back to this, Brian lives in Fort Wayne, and my wife's like family is from that area. So I've spent a few months up in Fort Wayne just visiting and stuff. It's a nice little, well, it's not that little, it's bigger than Bozeman here, but it's a nice town overall, nice and quiet. I enjoyed running around there, run a bunch. So yeah, it was pretty fun. It's pretty flat there, big big neighborhoods and big trees, and not a ton of traffic in those small neighborhood streets. So it was nice visiting there. Okay, and Dark Warrior says you just want freedom. Okay, and I guess if I just ask a direct question, so when you see those ads with the people, and I'll just pick a specific example of like, just imagine like someone in it. Oh, there's Ty Lopez also. So imagine, and he shows a lot of ads. So imagine like Ty Lopez like in his garage, and he has like multiple Ferraris or Lamborghinis or some other cars that I don't know what they are, and he's talking about just reading books, and all you have to do is read books, but he has these cars behind him. How does that make you feel? Like, do you think he's full of crap? Do you think there's something to it and you're not quite sure? Do those cars make you trust him more or trust him less? I think from the people that mentioned what they did before, I think the trust level goes down when you start showing off and trying to act like you're elite in any way. It doesn't really, like they're talking down to us. I feel like they're talking down to us, and they're trying to hide something with the cars, but I'm not really sure. Let's see. Okay, so Steven asked a question, which I'm going to hold till the end. Again, this one is totally a selfish live stream today to try something different. And I figured if you guys are here, but I will answer your question, Steven. It's a good one, and I have an answer for it. Oh, this is excellent. We have 15 viewers on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, if you can go to the chat, just let me know you're here. Say, hey, what's up? And I'll say hello to you individually. It's I appreciate you taking the time, and I know the live streams are a little tough to get onto. On Facebook, I see there are 3 people there, which is good. I know people watching the replay and stuff. So if you are over on Facebook, you could also ask questions. Let me know where you're from, if you've attended these before. Okay, and then Stephen mentions that, so my question was, when you see the fancy ads, imagine a Ty Lopez ad, because I feel like a lot of people have seen him a lot of places, and imagine him with his Ferraris. And what Steven mentions is you trust him much less, like the guy trying to get us to a webinar ad on YouTube, and then he steps out of a expensive car with a helicopter waiting behind him. Yeah, I think that's the John Cristani. He talks, like, he speaks well, right? He speaks really well, and he seems like pleasant. And if he wasn't in like the super expensive stuff and he was just like out doing cool things, like I could almost get on board with that, because that shows like some freedom that he's earned with his time in one way or another. But when they're like throwing around a lot of money, I'm just like, that's really weird. Okay, thank you, Stephen, for that. And I'll definitely come back to your question. Thank you for asking that. Psychoactive asked something unrelated, but that's a very quick answer. Does content marketing work for affiliate sites? The answer is yes. Content marketing works for like pretty much anything. David, what's up? Thank you for joining. Jace C, what's shaking? Just chilling here. Thank you for joining up. And Brian mentions you like following Niche Site Project. Thank you. Because it seems attainable. Very true. Ty Lopez and those guys flaunt their riches to make themselves more rich. At least it seems that way. But like you said, it works for his audience, and I think that's key. It's like the right people. I think they're attracting the people that'll buy their products, which is like the goal of their marketing. So I can appreciate like the nuance of it, but like obviously I don't want to do that. That's not like authentic to me, but it could be authentic to them, which is totally cool in however they want to do it. I mean, I don't want to like overemphasize my understanding of like people doing other stuff, but like that could be exactly who they are, and that's totally cool with me. Okay. So Mark has a question. You have an idea for a website and it's very product focused. Items sell well on Amazon, but you're concerned about content. I'll come back to that, Mark. I'll go through all the questions at the end. And Jason Wisdom, what's up? Thanks for joining, Jason. Haven't seen you around before. Let me know if it's your first time around. Okay. And then Steven says you really, okay. That's a continuation of the other question, which I will come back to. And Steven, you say, yeah, John Cristani. So, and Pat from San Marcos. Cool. And he mentions, seems like helping worthy others, whatever that means, is the best road to travel. I think I understand what you're saying. But yeah. Like, moving on here, Steven says, okay. Steven mentions it's not the reason we aren't supposed to be doing this for girls and cars. This is supposed to be a real business, serious, or if you take it as a joke, you'll fail. So good point, Steven, and cool. Thanks for all the comments there, and I'll come back to the questions. By the way, I know some other people like hopped on a little bit later, and if you're just joining, or if you have thoughts on like the Ty Lopez, John Cristani, who are sort of really displaying and flaunting the riches of their work, how it makes you feel, and sort of like the impression that you get from them. Just curious about that. And then if you are just joining, I'll just show my truck again. So in contrast to them, I just have like a regular, like, that's my truck. It's even, I should have washed the truck before I took the picture, because it looks like a real mess there, but that's what it looks like, you know. It gets a little dusty around here, and I haven't watched it in a few weeks. So, and I don't have to worry about scratches or anything. I mean, even though this picture was taken from like far away, like you could see like there's a scratch like right here. And yeah, if someone opens their car door into my car, it doesn't really bother me that much, because usually their car's nicer than mine. Okay, so I'll come back to the questions. And okay, So we'll give some background. Stephen, I'll go to your question first. And I want to give a little background to people who are not familiar. So the question is around a website that I just sold, in the middle of like telling the story. So if you haven't heard it, it's Project Go White Hat. My business partner and my business partner is Rob Atkinson, and I've known him for a few years, and I coached him for like, I don't know, 6 or 7 sessions or something like that, which are all on YouTube, by the way. I think they're hidden, so you have to sign up for my email list, but I'll probably fix that. Anyway, we just sold a site in the last few weeks, like in the middle of publishing the series to share that story on my blog. Stephen asked the question, why you decided to sell the website and not build it out, grow it, scale it for increased revenue. You're surprised the way that Rob and I did that. And then further, you expected us to at least calculate its value as a revenue source as well as a for sale asset. And back to the original question, would I be willing to evaluate my 2-year-old site that you put up for sale as if you instead intended to keep it? 4x the traffic, more SEO, keywords, content, and increase the revenue. What would you be able to make in the next 6 months putting in 1 hour per day? Okay, so here's the origin. There's a lot of questions and I'll try and answer them all. So the origin of the site is, it's a site that Rob started when I was coaching him, right? So he started the site maybe a little bit before I started coaching him. By the way, Rob was already like an accomplished like niche site developer and creator and owner. He just was not able to scale. So like one of my things that I can do is help people set up systems, use templates, and just sort of like expand a little more quickly. So this site was in place for a little while, right? So it was making good money, and it was like maybe a year and a half old, and Rob started expressing some ideas. It was like one of his top earners. It was his top earner, right? And he was like, hey, I think I maybe want to sell this site, but I have like these PBN links and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to sell it like cleanly because of that. It makes good money, but like PBN links, like it makes people nervous sometimes. So I had a skill set of getting guest post, right? At the time I was running a guest posting service and I could do it really well. Rob didn't have those skills, but he had a site. So we partnered together and I like got ownership in the site, right? So I had like equity and I earned equity over time as I completed different milestones. And basically we partnered, like I would have nothing to do with it if we didn't partner and agree to like go white hat and sell it, right? So he had these private blog network links and I knew how to replace them with something else. So that was my value that I brought. And basically I wouldn't be involved at all if he just like was going to sell it. So that's one aspect of it. Now, Rob and I definitely had conversations where we were like, okay, we can, you know, keep working on it or not and see how it goes. And from our perspective, right? So the site was making about 10K or more for over a year. It made a lot more in some months, like it made 32K in December of 2016. We added a ton of content and really like put time into the site leading up to that point and around September, I would say. And then our plan was to sell it, right? Like we had a specific, like this was a project, right? This was not an ongoing thing. So it was a project. We agreed to work on it for, you know, some amount of time. We had a timeline. We had specific goals we were going to accomplish, and then we were going to sell it. So that's the project. That's what we were working on. Now, Stephen, you're making assumptions that we wanted to keep the site for cash flow purposes, which that's kind of how I have my other sites, right? Like I want the cash flow. I don't necessarily want to cash out. They're white hat. They're all clean, and I want to have a long-term just cash flow coming from them. For this particular site, this was like a case study, and it was like high stakes, and we had like very specific stuff we were trying to accomplish. Now, if we wanted to like put the valuation on the site like the site cash flow, like the revenue per month, had dropped down because of one, I think there was like a little less popularity in that niche than there had been over the last 2 years, right? So the trend of like Google Trends, like it was going down. Not that steep, but you could see it had apexed and it was kind of moving down a little bit. Now, the other aspect is the Amazon commission rate change. So overnight, the revenue dropped and the value dropped by 35%. That's like nothing we can do about that. That's just the way it is. So that said, right, there were some factors out of our control. And like Stephen, your assumption is we wanted to work on the site for another year and try and recover those earnings or do something specific to like increase the value of the site. So we could have done it, but basically we didn't want to, right? Like the straightest answer is we didn't want to. Like we could have spent more time on it. The site's established. We were doing good things on it, but like we wanted to cash out. So the thing is, like, we got a 33x monthly multiple. So think about that for a second. So that means we cashed out like today or a few weeks ago. We cashed out and we got 33 months, almost 3 years paid in advance. So the thing is, if we would have sold it like a few months earlier, our value would have been like even more. So it would have been 35% higher, like 1/3 higher. So we could have sold it for like over $100,000 more. The point is, like, there's certain things in our control. There's a lot of, actually most things are not in our control. And for us to unload the site, sell it when we did, not only is it exactly what we wanted to do, and it's exactly what we intended to do, it like hedges the risk for 33 months, right? That's a pretty big deal. So it's not our only income stream. It wasn't like we needed to continue chasing it. Like we were happy with what we accomplished, so we moved on. So basically, we sold it because we wanted to, I guess, is the simplest answer. If we put a value to it, and as a sort of thought exercise, because I see what you're getting at. So Stephen, to be specific, you said if you 4x the traffic, add more keywords, more content, and increase the value, what could you make it in the next 6 months, putting in 1 hour a day? You know, I mean, if we were going to look at something like that, like if we really wanted to put time in, it wouldn't be 1 hour a day. We'd put in like 8 hours a day and like really hammer it home and like do very specific stuff. We wouldn't work on anything else. And probably it could be a, you know, much more valuable site. We could have recovered the earnings. We could have like really built it out. I don't think either Rob or I had any interest in doing that. Like I have some other stuff that I'm like going back to. I have another site that I work on with Lewis Ogden from Cloud Income. And we're sort of revisiting a site that we started working on a couple of years ago. We've ignored it for a while. We're ready to come back to it. And then I have students to support in my course. And then Rob has other projects too. So like we kind of planned it out. And I think we're both super happy with how it turned out. Okay, so those are really good questions, Stephen, by the way. And feel free to ask follow-ups and stuff, because like these are great. I actually can include them in the next update. Because I was struggling a little bit about what to put in the next post. So, okay, and I see some more comments here, which I'll read out. So Psychoactive says, Alex Becker sells courses, then sells the software inside the course and teaches people how to make money with the software. So that's cool. Okay, and then Nick said, you just found my site. Awesome, thank you. And I appreciate you mentioning the content. Thanks for sending me an email. I will check it out. And then Leo mentions this is around, what you think about like Tai Lopez and other like marketers that show off their like their riches. So you get a feeling of snake oil salesmen that you saw from pitchmen at learning annex events. You're more than willing to listen to someone who shares their knowledge rather than trying to flaunt their wealth. Awesome. That's really well put. And then Psycho says, Tai Lopez has been doing internet marketing for years. You look at his site on the Wayback Machine, and he had a dating site that was a scam. People couldn't cancel their subscriptions. That's pretty funny. Let's see. And then Steven says, back to the other answer that I gave. And thanks, Paul. I see your question on Facebook. I'll hop over in just a moment. So Steven says, you would have liked to see as a normal business both the revenue stream valuation and a sales valuation. It's more valuable selling than running, or the other way around. Gotcha. So in like my argument, Stephen, is like the revenue stream valuation. Like actually, you know what? I don't have a good economic background. I don't know what you mean by a revenue stream valuation and a sales valuation. Like in my opinion, like only the sales value, like only the actual value of the site that someone would pay is what matters. From a revenue stream, I mean, it would have been, a few $1,000s a month for, me and Rob each, which is great. But like we said, a specific, like the project was to do a specific thing. So that's how we ended up at that area. But like I said, these are really good questions and stuff that because I was so like deep into the project, like I wasn't thinking about like these questions that you have. So they're very good and I appreciate you asking them. Okay. Nick says, wow, that's really good. Although I'm not 100% sure what you're talking about, but I think that's great that you said it. Dark says, do you think that the internet will be overwhelmed by competition in the next 10 years? Not exactly. I mean, I think things will change and like there will be new stuff, right? Like when you think about how old like Facebook is, or you think about how old YouTube is, it's not that old. Like things are going to shift. People will have to pivot. In fact, I was just talking to Shauna from Skip Blast the other day. She's traveling through like my area of the country. She was in town at the Starbucks, and we had a coffee and talked about business a little bit. And this was one of the things like I sort of asked her, and she mentioned, we'll have to pivot a little bit. Things will be a little bit different, but there's always like new stuff coming out. So like if you're on the leading edge of that stuff, or if you understand how to like transfer over and pivot some, then you'll be all right. And then Steven says, so you were treating this Project Go White Hat like a lab project or an exercise for sales only? Yeah, basically. Yep. We were like the project was just to sell the site. Yeah. So that was like the goal. And I mean, like technically, if I think either of us, if one of us wanted to keep the site longer, like we have a really good working relationship. So we could have like entertained that, or if I wanted to buy him out, or if he wanted to buy me out, like I'm sure we would have like been okay with that. But yeah, the deal was to sell it. And from the very, like if you go all the way back to the very first blog post, like that was the thing. We're selling the site, we're transferring it over, we're selling the site, we're curious about how this is going to play out. Then David says, how many emails do I get from readers? At least one or two, and sometimes a lot more. Sometimes way, way more than that. And I answer every single one. Like if you didn't get one back from me, it's just somehow I missed it or something like that. So I'm going to hop over to Facebook really quick because I see Paul has been super patient. So Paul's question is, was the main way you built backlinks through outreach? Yes. The answer is yes, guest post. Paul says, when I watch videos from individuals who show off their wealth using that as bait for people to sign up, you used to get discouraged, but now you don't really care. You just focus on what, well, it's sort of like cut off your comment there, but I think I got the gist of it, Paul. That's super helpful. So now you just focus on like the actual information that they're trying to get over to you, I guess. Okay, super. And then James, I see you hopped on. James Rodriguez, awesome. Glad you can make it, really appreciate it. So Stephen then follows up and says, what I mean is if you put the site through your process, what would you have made financially, or did you just walk away from a very large monthly income just to sell the site? Let's see. I guess I'm not 100% sure how to answer. What I mean is if you put the site through the process, what would you have made financially? I honestly, I have no idea. I mean, we put it through the process that we intended to. If I guess your question is if I like focus solely on one site, and I think Josh Brown is asking a good question, which I think follows in really well. He says, bro, why do all these internet marketers do different projects and not just one or two big ones for maximum profit? Josh, it's so tough. That's a super question. I'm trying to like go back to that because we see like a lot of opportunities, and I assume a lot of people in the chat can relate also. But like you see a lot of opportunities, especially once you like figure out how to do a couple things right, you get a little success. You see too many opportunities and then you chase too many things and you make like this much progress in a lot of different areas instead of this much progress. So I am, Josh, to answer your question, I'm trying to do more in fewer areas so that I can make like more profit. However, I will challenge you on the maximum profit. My goal is definitely not to have maximum profit. I work about 4 to 6 hours a day. So like my goal isn't to make enough, like make maximum profit. My goal is to have like enough free time so I get to do stuff that I want, and then also to have like enough money where I'm comfortable, which it turns out like one can make more money for yourself than you can like working for a company, which is hard. Like 10 years ago, I would have like laughed at myself listening to the stuff that I'm saying now, but it's totally true. And Josh, you're 100% right. And then going back to Steven's stuff, did you just walk away from a very large monthly income just to sell the site? I guess so. I think if both, I mean, technically, it's weird to think about this. Technically, if Rob and I were only working on that one site and we were putting all of our time, 100% of our time onto one site, it probably could have been like 2 or 3x like the monthly revenue within the next, say, 10 months or so. When I came on board and we started making improvements in the content and we started to like, you know, move over to White Hat, the revenue like went up a lot. Now, when we started pulling away those private blog network links, the revenue went back down, but I don't think that's anything that we couldn't overcome through more backlinks. So, Stephen, I hope I answered your question. And I guess overall, like we were working on a specific thing, and I can definitely stick to that, stick with my guns on that. And like we're working on transforming the site from gray hat to white hat and then selling it. Like that was the goal. So and I think, you hear, I think on the Tim Ferriss podcast and many others, like one of the questions is, who do you see as like the most successful person, or when you think of success, who do you think of? And like, it's really important to remember that it's like what someone intended to do and then what they accomplished. Because if our goal was to like have the site as a long-term asset and then we just sold it, well, then we failed. Even if we sold it for like millions of dollars, we still failed because we didn't do what we accomplished. However, our goal was to transform it and then sell it at a price that we were happy with, which is like built in there. And we did that. So it was a total success and we're happy with it. Okay. And then before I move on, Paul says, Josh, if I could chime in, I think it's really hard to work on more than 1 or 2 projects at any given time, even if you have a team and systems set up. You could easily get off track and I can't read any more of the comment. But Paul, I think you're right on, spot on there. Okay. Okay, and Garab mentions, hey Garab, what's up? Neil Patel and Brian Dean don't do that. Oh yeah, and you know what? A few other people like Derek Halpern and Ramit Sethi, they don't do anything like that. Like they're very, I mean, they may, excuse me, they may mention, the things that they get to do, but it's never in a like, see what expensive stuff I have. And Steven says, you think my process is more valuable than selling a site. Thanks. Well, the good part is now that we've sold the site, now I can like do my process like on my own sites. So I think that's part of it too. So we sold the site, we got 33 months up like for evaluation. And then from there, I can now like focus on my own sites, which is valuable. Okay, Ronit says, how much is Project Go White Hat site making? We sold it, so we don't have it anymore. But if you go to the most recent blog post, which is, I could paste it in there, I think. I'll paste it in there. You can see the revenue that it was making at the time that it was valued. So, and if you go read some of the other blog posts, you can see the sort of like earnings over time. And I think, so Stephen, the one thing I'll mention, so you say the process is more valuable than selling a site. I think like executing the process is like the most important part. So the process, while I think it's good, if one doesn't do anything with it, it's not very helpful. And then it looks like we only have people named Paul in Facebook, which is cool, or Josh. So I don't have a good way to do it, but if you go to niche site project /blog, it should be one of the top posts. It's part 10. David asks, oh, and Ronnie, it was making around, I think like 8,000 to 9,000 was like the average after you knock down the revenue by 35% because of the Amazon changes. So if you read previous posts, the revenue is much higher, but that's why. So, okay. David asked, how many PBN links did you need to remove? Like 44, 45, something like that. Tell us about the people on the other end of the transaction, the whales buying sites like yours. Who are they? Where do they get their capital? Are they internet marketers? How do I become them? Oh, Josh, I have no idea, to be honest with you. I think most of them are investment groups, right? Because I mean, a lot of them are paying like cash for it. So in some cases, it's people that, maybe they owned a business. There's a gentleman I met back when I was in Atlanta, and he read a guest post on Empire Flippers that I wrote, and then connected with me, sent an email, and basically like we had lunch. I think he had a business. He was running a business. He sold it, and he had like other friends that were in a similar position. And they were like, in their 30s. So they had like an investment group where they put aside like certain amount of money and they invested in different stuff. So basically, your question is how do you become them? I would say go do something amazing and make a lot of money, and then you could buy the sites. But I mean, I guess if you could make a lot of money, then you wouldn't need to ask me that. Not that you can't, but you don't know how to do it yet, Josh. I'm sure you can do whatever you put your mind to. So, but yeah, I think they're mostly investment groups. Okay, Nick says, is there ever a time you would buy a content site versus building it yourself to save time? I don't think so. In fact, I wrote a whole post about how I don't think done-for-you sites are a good investment or a good move for most people. There's only like a small segment of people. I just like to have things done in a very specific way, so I don't think there's like a huge amount of value. Like I know how to find keywords and like I know how to do stuff. Now for other people, the reason why I don't think you should, like if you're asking the question, Nick, probably you shouldn't buy one. The thing is, like, if you don't know how to find the keywords, if you're not sure how to come up with the content, if you don't know how to get traffic, backlinks, and all that stuff, well, the problem is you buy a site and then you don't know what to do next, and you struggle. Even though, like, whoever is selling, like, a lot of the people that sell the sites are, like, my friends. So basically, I don't really advise many people to buy those sites. They will tell you, hey, the site has potential to make X amount of money, but that's all theoretical. That's theoretical based on like best case scenario, which that never happens, right? Even if you know what you're doing, the best case scenario is not going to happen by like definition. So anyway, Nick, I would say it personally wouldn't save me that much time, and I don't launch that many sites. I know you're new to like niche site project and me and stuff, but generally I just have like as few number of sites as I can at a time. So next I see Josh, and then we'll have to, I was just going to do this thing for like 30 minutes, but I think I'm going to have to, we're already like pushing an hour. So we'll have to close it out in just a second. I'm going to hop over to Facebook real quick. Paul asked, do I have a course? Yes, I do. It's called 5-Figure Niche Site. Enrollment opens in a few weeks. I only do like very short enrollment periods, and yep, it's in a couple weeks. So check it out, 5figurenichesite.com. JP, what's up? Thanks for joining. How do I get backlinks? I do blog commenting and guest posts. Super simple, just those two things. Next, Josh says, what is my preferred anchor text ratio for branded and EMDs? So I don't really pay attention to that. Anchor text ratio for branded domains and EMDs. Yeah, I don't really pay too much attention. I generally just do long phrases with like keyword rich anchor text. And I also don't link like to the root domain hardly ever. I only will link to posts that I want to rank. I don't care if my homepage ranks. Josh also says, having some success with your recent sale, what would you do differently as advice to us? Advice to myself too. I would say I waited too long before I fired my outreach manager. He wasn't doing a very good job, and we weren't communicating well anymore. And I should have like, I was friends with him, or I'm friends with him, so I let that sort of get in the way, and I gave him like more flexibility than I normally would. So I should have fired him probably 2 months sooner, like 2 months sooner. And if I would have done that, I could have picked up the slack, potentially like taken care of it maybe this is bad to think about, but maybe, just maybe, I could have finished by the time or before the commission rate changed. So like that is something. So basically my advice, like in general, is to like do more than you think, because it's going to take more work than you think it's going to. Like, to generalize it, shit's going to go wrong. Like, stuff's going to go wrong. You're not going to expect it. And like, you'll need to do more work than you think. And everything's going to be harder than you think. Paul says, do I have a blog post on guest post outreach? Yeah, I got a few. There's one, I think, called like 6 guest posts in 6 weeks, something like that, Paul. So if you go to Niche Site Project, you should be able to, oh, you're in the Facebook group also, right, Paul NG? So Paul, if you like post in the Facebook group and say, hey, I'm looking for Doug's guest post with Jim on, or Doug's post on guest posting for the starting from scratch case study, like you should be able to have someone answer. And let's see. Okay, cool. And then Nick also mentions to Josh, Empire Flippers they have been talking about investment groups buying sites to add to a portfolio as an asset. Yeah, totally true. And I think that's like probably the people that have that much cash, not individuals generally. And then Nick also mentions, I thought in your main niche site post, you said to put the root URL of your site, not the post you want to rank for in the comment. Yes, that is 100% true. And Nick, what I really mean there, thanks for calling that out, by the way. So when you leave a blog comment, you should put the root domain of the URL, period. When I do guest posts, the links there need to be like to your actual like post you're trying to rank, not the not like your root domain, right? We're not trying to rank our root domain. We're just trying to rank specific URLs, I hope, right? So that's the reasoning there on that. Okay, cool. I think I worked through all the questions. Thanks a lot, everyone in the chat. That was like really good. This was way easier than like actually having to do the live stream on my phone and like following the chat on my phone. So yeah, much easier. And I got a lot of good info. Thanks for the help on my question as far as content in the truck. And I think at this point, we'll end it up. So thanks for joining today. I'll do another one of these tomorrow. I think I'm going to forego any webinar this week. I just sort of ran out of time with the scheduling. But I am doing at least one next week, maybe 2. So keep an eye out for that webinar. Thank you, Pauls and JP and other folks on Facebook. I appreciate you joining, and everyone over on YouTube. We'll see you next time. Bye.